Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. We've talked about those sequels that improved on the originals, but today we're flipping that floppy. This is all about the follow-ups that just didn't hit the mark. Whether it was bad design decisions, lost charm, or just the original being too good to top. So here are the 10 DOS sequels that were not as good as the originals. Let's go! The original Prince of Persia was a revelation. Its rotoscoped animation was light years ahead of the competition, and the minimalistic yet high-stakes design created a unique mix of tension and elegance. Tight controls, 1-hour time limits, and a sense of being completely alone in a hostile environment made it a gripping experience. You just loved running around these deadly dungeons, battling buddies, avoiding traps, and seeking ways to save your love. Then came Prince of Persia 2: The Shadow and the Flame. Sure, it looked flashier and it expanded the world into new fantasy directions, but it also became more linear and action-focused. Gone was the purity of the original's design, replaced with frustrating trial-and-error sections, erratic difficulty, and less atmosphere. Some of the enemies were so out there that they made no sense at all, neither within the narrative of the story nor aesthetically either. It wasn't a terrible game, mind you, but it definitely traded sophistication for spectacle, and that trade didn't fully pay off. Kinda like those bog of deals on burgers. Sure, you get 2 tasty treats for the price of 1, but with a hidden bonus of diabetes. The original Lemmings was a brilliantly simple puzzle game. Save the clueless little guys marching aimlessly ahead by assigning basic skills like digging, blocking, and building. That simplicity was the magic, it was elegant, accessible, and endlessly replayable. Lemmings 2: The Tribes tried to evolve the formula by dividing the Lemmings into 12 teamed tribes for a total of 120 individual levels and giving them over 50 unique skills. The result? A game that was bigger but not necessarily better. Managing so many different abilities became tedious, levels were often designed around obscure solutions leading to more frustration than fun, and some of the skills seemed to be added on just to reach some kind of imaginary milestone. I mean, Super Lemming, did we really needed one of these? The learning curve shot up, and the game's core charm got lost in its own complexity. It was an ambitious sequel, but it drowned in its own new mechanics. Eye of the Beholder 1 and 2 were fan-favorite dungeon crawlers that combined goldbox-style D&D mechanics with a sleek, modern-at-the-time first-person perspective. They were rich in atmosphere, with challenging combat, inventive puzzles, and superb level design that made every descent into the depths a real adventure. You could spot a skeleton or a TCL beholder, and you just never knew what it will be. It was fantastic. Then came Eye of the Beholder 3, Assault on Myth Draenor, and the magic was gone. Westwood had moved on, and the new development team couldn't recapture the formula. Don't get me wrong, they tried, you can tell that they did, but the graphics looked dated for 1993, the pacing was off, and the combat lacked easily noticeable feedback. Levels felt generic and repetitive, and the sense of danger and discovery was nowhere near what the first 2 games offered. It felt more like a budget expansion, made out of same rapidly aging assets than a true sequel. The original Descent was a jaw-dropping 3D shooter that broke the mold. Full 6 degrees of freedom of movement, labyrinthine mines, and tense claustrophobic firefights gave it a very specific kind of intensity, like a zero-gravity Doom meets flight sim meets an action shooter. You know, triple the genres, triple the fun. And then came Descent 2. More levels, smarter enemies, improved lighting, and new weapons. It had to be so much better, right? Well, something was clearly lost in the upgrade. The levels were more complex, sure, but also more confusing and less atmospheric. The robotic sidekick meant to help you navigate often broke the immersion, because it was obvious that it was added for you to not get lost in the levels. The game tried to go bigger, but ended up feeling bloated. Instead of refining the original strengths, it drowned them in excess of unnecessary extra features. The original Alone in the Dark was a true trailblazer. It was arguably the first ever 3D survival horror. With its fixed camera angles, polygonal characters and eerie mansion setting, it defines its own genre before Resident Evil even existed. The pacing was tight, the tone was dread-soaked, and the limited ammo, plenty of jumpscares, and god-awful tank controls all added to the tension. And yes, I do not like tank controls. Alone in the Dark 2 tossed much of that aside in favor of, well, gangsters and voodoo pirates. The shift in setting was jarring. It became less about survival and the overwhelming fear, and more about awkward gunfights and forced stealth. The creepy atmosphere was replaced with action cliches, and the puzzles became less inspired. For a horror sequel, it just wasn't scary, and that was its biggest failure. Because as a game in any other genre, it would have been kinda okay. The original Duke Nukem was one of the sleekest PC platformers of the early 90s. It came out in time when most people thought that PC was incapable of platforming at the quality of Mario, and it proved them wrong. It offered fast-paced gameplay, responsive controls, and a lot of bodies to put down. With its bright EGA graphics, clever level design, and a unique jetpack mechanic, it stood out from the crowd. Duke Nukem 2 upgraded the visuals and added new weapons and gadgets, but the game suffered from slower pacing and bloated level design. It lost the snappy simplicity of the first title, and Duke's one-liners didn't quite land just yet. Truth be told, they weren't that much worse than in later Duke 3D, it was just too early. While Duke Nukem 2 was not a terrible sequel, it lacked the originality and polish of the first one, and it wouldn't be until Duke Nukem 3D that the character would really come into his own. I mean, shake it, baby! Carmageddon was absurd, violent, and so brilliant. Its chaotic vehicular carnage and open-ended levels let players wreck everything and rack up points by running over pedestrians. It was darkly funny, addictive, and surprisingly deep, often favoring distraction over positions in a particular race. Now, Carmageddon 2 went all in on gore. It tried to up the ante with more advanced graphics and 3D models, but it all came at the cost. The handling was floatier, the visual style lost its gritty charm, and the balance felt unexplainably off. AI opponents were less aggressive, and the novelty of violence were a bit thin. It didn't feel as fresh or daring, but more like a fries heated up burger in a day-old stale bun. It was louder, but not better. Like a sequel trying too hard to shock without refining what worked in the original. It is still my personal faith in the series, but it's mostly the nostalgia and not the facts that make it so. Ultima 7 was a towering achievement in RPG. It was expansive, immersive, and full of meaningful choices and their consequences. It let players explore a vibrant world full of believable NPCs, deep lore, and complex systems. It was one of the finest RPGs on DOS, period. Oh, and it had a flying carpet, which I think we can all agree is not nothing. Ultima 8 Pagan, however, to many felt like a betrayal. In an effort to modernize, it ditched the party system, went all in on action platforming, and added awkward jumping mechanics that no one asked for. The open world became claustrophobic, magic was gutted, and the story felt disjointed. It looked slick, but it didn't feel like a true Ultima. The soul of the series was lost in a game that prioritized experimentation over legacy. There was something seriously off about it. The first Battle Chess was a cult classic, bringing traditional chess to life with comical, animated battles. I remember seeing it first on the Amiga, long before I had it on my PC, and having my mind blown with how fun the otherwise rather static traditional strategy could be. I mean, watching a knight decapitate a pawn just never got old. It was a hit, even with people who didn't like chess. Battle Chess 2 changed the formula entirely by switching from Western chess to Chinese xiangqi, which I've undoubtedly butchered the pronunciation of. Unfortunately, most Western audiences didn't know the rules, and the charm of the animations was dialed back considerably. It felt like a niche experiment that you had to learn from ground up, rather than the true sequel. Without the familiarity or humor of the first game, it just didn't connect with the same audience. The Quest for Glory series was beloved for blending RPG mechanics with Sierra's classic adventuring formula. It was a marriage of styles that worked like a charm even if no one expected it to. From combat and classes to witty writing and charming to the art, each entry built on the last while keeping the player's choices persistent throughout. But Quest for Glory V Dragonfire brought the series to 3D, and not in a good way. Combat became clunky, exploration was awkward, and many puzzles were dumbed down. The rich hand-painted look of previous games gave way to blunt polygonal models. It tried to go modern, but lost its unique identity. As a finale, it felt more like an external spin-off rather than a celebration of years of epic achievements. It was not inherently a bad game, but it was nowhere near the quality the series deserved to end on. So there you have it, 10 DOS sequels that didn't quite live up to their originals. Some of them tried bold new ideas, others just fell flat or misguided, but all of them struggled to recapture the magic that made their predecessors great. What do you think though? Did I miss any flops or misunderstood releases? I mean, I've only covered 10 here and there are dozens more. Or maybe you disagree and think one of these was actually better than the original. Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to my channel for more retro deep dives, lists, hidden gems and classic gaming nostalgia. Take care of yourself, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.